That was too long ago.
What did we learn yesterday?
We learned that Mother moved around a lot when she was young.
That's right.
She was flighty.
How many?
She's flighty. She went from, let's see if I can do this, she went from 808 to a place on Adams Street. No, she went from 808 to Fort Dodge, to a place on Adams Street, to another place on Adams Street, back to 808, then out to Birmingham, and then off to Scranton.
How many cemeteries were we in?
10, 20, 20, 10, 13,
Seemed like it was only 3.
3.
No, the one at what's the town that isn't there anymore?
Ashford?
Asheville.
Ashland.
Ashland. That was 4. But we didn't look at any tombstones there. So.
What else did we learn yesterday?
We learned that our mother had a very, very diverse childhood.
That's right.
She was able to spend time at her grandfather's farm, and at the university, hanging around with people at Parsons College, and we were able to, then she had lots of friends, and she was able to do lots of different things.
We also learned, here, Mom.
I would like to make one little correction addition. I bypassed a half a dozen, no, not a half a dozen places, but all the places where we lived in Iowa when Mother was teaching school and Dad was working as censor and translator on the Mexican border in San Antonio, because we went from Birmingham to Milford Township Consolidated out of Nevada. We went to Webster City. We went to Cylinder. We went from Cylinder to Scranton. And in the meantime, I had gone to Teachers College High School in Lincoln, Nebraska to make up for when I had rheumatic fever and couldn't carry a full schedule. So I was in 5 different high schools.
Explains a lot.
Well, it made me adaptable. It made me adaptable. Shifting around and making new friends in a new situation never did bother me after that.
We were in, let's think, we were in Turkey Scratch. We were in, we learned that Mom did a lot of research on obscure cemeteries.
Yes, that's right.
Buzzard something or other.
Buzzard's Glory.
Buzzard's Glory.
That was my mother, the name of my mother's one-room school near the McCleary farmstead, which was her first school.
Okay. And your mother lived in Fort Dodge. Grandpa worked there.
He was
And
my father was dean of the junior college in Fort Dodge.
We also visited where Grandpa Jorgenson worked. We got to go to the auditor's office, which hadn't changed. I mean, there's some places that hadn't changed much.
no,
The auditor's office
no.
hadn't changed.
No.
Parsons College had changed a little.
County government.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, but the difference was the Board of Supervisors office where your grandfather, your great-grandfather McCleary was on the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
That room had been carved up, so that had changed.
That had changed. And we got to see the church photographs
Yes.
of Christine Ulrichs,
Kristina
Jorgenson.
That's right, with a CH.
That's right.
R-I-S-T-I.
Confirmation. Her confirmation.
And a confirmation, and we got to talk to somebody who remembered somebody. We got to meet cousins.
We got to meet cousins. That was Dad's big deal.
Yep, Dad found that.
Dad found that out.
I think
so he
Dad
gets
should
credit
give
there.
the report on that.
I think he should.
Well, yeah, what happened with the cousins, Dad?
What cousins?
My cousin Doris that you discovered for me.
Oh, I discovered them all at coffee at breakfast at the motel.
Yep.
All these people who were somehow or another connected to your mother. One couple coming from Illinois, second cousin or so of
you're
hers,
soft and cuddly.
and some people who were of the family of her own neighbor.
The other thing was when we were at the McIntyre Cemetery at the end of the road. We ran into the people that had the other half of the cemetery, and they were the ones that were maintaining it because it's a very neat and very clean cemetery.
Yeah. And the other high points of the day, personally, were getting a speeding ticket with my father.
Yes.
Observing.
But it was only $45.
But it was only $41, so I was in pretty good shape.
I'm queen of drivers in Olmsted.
And we perused the
Maharishi.
Maharishi meditation transcendental school of
Management.
Of management.
management. So I decided they didn't know how to manage much of anything. The old Parsons campus has completely gone to pot. The buildings they build are scudsy. The maintenance is miserable, and the whole thing is a mishmash of what's the name of the place again?
Mish.
The mishmash.
Oh, and don't forget visiting the grave of Chief Wapello.
That's right.
Yes.
Right by the train tracks.
Remember the train tracks, and
That was quite interesting.
that was.
So overall, Fairfield was
I think back to Maharishi.
It was sad that you weren't here, Christy, but if you'd have been here, the car would have been too crowded.
That's right. We did discuss that.
That's right.
And since Carl's thinking of his MBA, we were seriously looking at the Maharishi School of Management as an opportunity for him. We felt that would be a prestigious degree that would definitely take him far in life.
That's
and
right.
Carl, as part of that discussion, taught us how levitation really works and really occurs.
That's
That
right.
It's all in the speed of the bounce.
That's right.
The bounce up is faster than the bounce down, therefore you're levitating.
All right. Well,
We did we comment on Grant Wood's house? That was a high
oh, that's
point.
right. We also
Eldon,
got Grant Wood House.
where he painted the site of
American
American
Gothic.
Gothic down in Eldon,
Yeah.
Iowa, on the river, but we could not find that
Roseanne
restaurant.
Barr.
Roseanne Barr's Cafe.
Cafe?
And we would have missed you, Christy, but there was too much excitement going on.
We don't think we would have had you
We
with
just
us.
thought
Would have been
about this
overload. We thought
Critical mass.
critical. Seriously, it would have been wonderful if we could have joined
And
us.
we
Don't
missed
believe a
having you.
word of
Don't
what we
leave a
said.
word of what we said. We missed having you here.
She was with us in spirit.
That's
she
right.
was with us in spirit.
Yeah. And the kids didn't squabble too much. so.
Oh, I know. We saw a rhino graveyard.
That's right. Tell Todd.
We were going to stop and take a picture, but we drove by it too fast. But it was all of these big
Rhinos. Dodge
big
Power Wagons.
Dodge Power Wagons. There's a whole parking lot full of them, of all different
Old ones,
vintages.
some of them painted military colors.
Yeah, a lot of them were definitely from their late 30s, early 40s on up into the 50s. It was pretty cool.
Oh,
We should have stopped with it.
and something else, most important to Carl, we paid homage at the grave of the father-in-law of George Donner's daughter,
That's right.
Elizabeth.
That's right. Well, since I have the power button here, I'm going to turn this off and send this off to you. But it was a fun trip and we had fun. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, Mother dear.
On the left was the fraternity house, right over there. And it was the AKX house, Alpha Chi, I don't know, AKX, whatever it
Well,
stood
that
for.
would be,
And,
I don't know.
and there was a garage here, and in it was a stagecoach, a real old, a stagecoach, original one. And we kids used to play in that stagecoach. And my father had a problem with these fraternity boys because when he was in charge of commencement once, why, his ushers didn't show up, and he went in there at the fraternity house and he found them all drunk, and so he threw them all in the shower, a cold shower, and sobered them up, and they were exemplary Parsons students a short time later. And I couldn't say AKX, and so I called it the Kiss Cuss Boys. And my folks thought that the Kiss Cuss Boys was just perfect for that, for them. Okay,
so
here,
this is the corner of your childhood.
the corner of my childhood. With the campus right across the street.
And this was the house over there?
This was my ancestral home. Yeah, except that tree. These trees were not there.
The apple tree was not?
No. And neither was this. Oh, this is depressing. This is depressing. Thomas Wilf said you can't go home again. And I think he's right. My father had such trouble mowing this embankment. Oh, all right, can you see? You can't even see the house. Now, the big, look here, even with some of the sidewalks disappeared. What I want to tell you about this house, there was a window box right under the front windows upstairs. And one day my mother could not find me. And she looked, and I had opened the window, and I was out in the window box. and I came back in. It was the same story, Gretchen crawling out and coming in. So this was my home, 808 North 4th Street. Now, 808 North 4th Street. But there's been a major change. When we lived here, there was a set of steps that went up, and it went off to the right to the Jorgensons, and to the left to the Balls.
Where were the steps?
Right here, where this stuff is. They've ripped them up, and the steps are gone. We had one set of steps serving both houses. Now here lived Harry Ball, and Mrs. Ball was wonderful. She was just wonderful. She was so kind, and when she left her oil barrel open, the oil barrel that was buried below, and I found it open, and I tried filling it with sand and gravel. They didn't say anything; they just had it pumped up. But Harry Ball was known throughout the state for his cattle deals, and he was, I think, arrested by he was the subject of a federal grand jury for interstate fraud. And once there was a man who came here and asked my father about Harry Ball. And Dad said to this man, this stranger from out of town, "Finer neighbor I never had, but I never bought any cattle from him either." That was one of our classic. Okay. And the Balls had an underground garage with a tunnel that led there.
Yeah. Still there.
And
What building did Grandpa teach in? Do you know?
Yes, it was over across the street at
Okay.
the college. But see, the underground garage and then beyond here was a vacant lot. It was Jorgenson Balls, a vacant lot, and there was where we had the croquet game laid out.
Ah.
And I'll show you where the college kids lived that played croquet. You know, no one has ever built on this lot. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, for the poison ivy. Or no, I guess that isn't.
Isn't that amazing? No one has built on this lot yet. And so that's why I learned to play, why I enjoy croquet. It's because I played croquet with those college kids. We'll go around on the t'other side. None of those buildings over there. This was brick at the time. Highway 1 was brick, and it made such a nice rumble. Such a nice rumble. Lincoln School, they fenced it in. We used to play there. See, it was wonderful growing up here because I had the college campus in my front yard with Crow Creek at the back. And then I had the playground. Why on earth? And we played out here in the summertime. Why would they fence off?
So they can play baseball there.
Oh, pardon. All right, I see the gates open. All right.
You gotta keep the kids off the street.
Okay, the gate's open, so it's okay. This was Hunt's home, and it was probably one of the finest homes in all of town. His family owned one of the major manufacturing towns.
Problem with stone walls, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Is that light pictures off? No, they were one of the wealthiest families in town, and they were nice. And their daughter was Rose, and they were kind. They were good neighbors. This was the alley. See, that went back and forth from our house.
Well, you want to go up the alley?
No, we're going to walk all the way around the block.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this was where Deanie and her husband, Orville Morgan lived. And Deanie ran a rooming house, but she also had a boarding house. In addition, she would feed college students all they could eat for 25 cents a meal. Well, in the evening, after Deanie had fed the boarders, it was my job to paddle down that alley, go to see what food was on Aunt Deanie's back porch. Because we were so poor and so that our what we ate was depending on Deanie's leftovers. Because a little batch of food left over from feeding Deanie's 20s or some college students would be a meal for the Jorgensons. Supplemented in summer, of course, what Dad raised in the garden, in the wintertime what Mother had canned. But that was wonderful to see what Aunt Deanie had cooked, what we got to eat. You just can't imagine what it was like to be that poor and live that way.
Which alley we go up on?
No, we're going to go on up to Graber's. This is where Crocker Johnson lived. They were Lutherans, unfortunately. But when they passed this jar around where everybody cooked something and then took it to somebody else, or baked something and then put some money in the jar, when they got it back, it was hard, the money in it that should have been. And Mrs. Johnson said, "Oh, Sonny got into it with a case knife," which did not play with the Royal Oaks class in Sunday school. This was Graber's. Dr. Graber lived here with his family, and I played with the Graber kids. All of this was open. None
this
of
is
this.
all new. This was the last house.
Last house. None of these houses were here. Nothing. Nothing. No, I just wanted to see Graber.
Back the same way?
No, then we can walk up the alley. None of this. None of this. See, the difference is these houses that were built originally were good houses, fine houses. But these houses that have come in since then are just ordinary houses. Yeah. But Lincoln Grade School, was a 2-story school. So this is not the school at all. And there was a little wooden building this side, and it was called Todd Lincoln. No, Todd?
Yeah, I think that was.
Yeah. No, they kept the name. Nothing. I used to go barefoot and walk these alleys with my bare feet.
Yeah, but
But I
they didn't
was-
have stone on them. Huh?
No, and they had cinders on them, and they were kind of oily.
They got 2 dishes on them.
Right. Well, probably 2 apartments.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this house up here on the right, which we're coming to, was Dr. McGuire's house, our doctor. And only once I remember going to the doctor, because the doctor came to us.
Oh, he only lived, 3 houses up?
Yes, and when he came home for lunch, Mother would come up here to see him, and Dr. McGuire would stop and see us on his way back to the office. And when Alf arrived, was expected, Dad didn't have money to pay the doctor bill, and so he painted barns and dug ditches out of Dr. McGuire's farm in order to pay for Alf.
Oh.
And he was a good doctor. He was a good man. And for office calls, home visits, I don't think he ever charged.
This would have been the late 20s, early 30s?
Yes, early 30s. Now, this house was built by B.D. Roberts, a friend of Dad's who came up here in the summers.
Okay.
And it was poorly built, and I remember that woman who bought it complaining that when the wind blew, it blew her cigarette out, and that was pretty daring to think a woman would smoke a cigarette. Okay, now here. But this house was where Professor Schell, who was the humanities, no, he taught Greek, Romance languages. He was older, and he and Dad farmed this area. These were Mr. Shell's garden along with my dad's. And they would philosophize as they gardened. And
Where did they garden?
well, for the Shell's house was here, and then there was a tool shed, and then all of this was garden. And my dad had 2 big gardens here, and Mr. Shell had 1 garden, and my father had another garden out of Grandpa's with this is when he's unemployed. He raised enough food in those 3 gardens with what Mother canned, 400 or 500 quarts a summer, to get us through the winter. Mm-hmm. So we lived on home canned veggies and fruit, cornbread with sorghum.
How long was he unemployed?
When did he teach at Parsons College then?
He taught in Parsons College from 1926 through 1932.
So this is after 32? Or?
Oh, yes. He was the last one hired by Parsons before the Depression hit, so he was the first one let go when they couldn't make payroll. And then that first year he was unemployed, he went to Fort Dodge. He was dean of the Fort Dodge Junior College. He went there because a man was on sabbatical leave, but that man came back for 1 year, and then Dad was out, and we were really out. Then's when we moved out of we'd moved out of our house, but we rented out the house. Mm-hmm. I'll show you where we lived. Yeah. In an upstairs apartment, and with the rent we got from this house, we survived. Survived is the word for it. Yeah. Then we moved back in and into our home, and Dad was county auditor, and things were all right. But then when Dad was no longer county auditor, all of us, that's 5 of us, my father, my mother, my 2 brothers, and myself, we all slept in 1 bedroom, and we rented out the rest of the house, and it was on the rent money from those 2 bedrooms, that we survived.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep, we've got it easy.
You just don't know. And I'll show you the sleeping porch. They still had a sleeping porch on the back, because in summer it was easier. We weren't all 5 in 1 bedroom. We spread out the sleeping porch. And in the winter, if we had a quarter section of beef, we put it out on the sleeping porch and it'd stay cold. Do you see what I see? There's an air conditioner in the attic.
Yes.
Someone is living in the attic. Someone's living in the attic. I know that Maharaji School of Management owns this building, and at least they don't have the trumpeting elephant there anymore.
Where was that?
I'll show you. On the front. This garage was not in back. They ruined the backyard. That's where my sand pile used to be. Yeah, and the screen porch below is no longer screened, and the upper porch sleeping porch has been enclosed. I can see how they might have someone up there because it was a wide stairway leading up there, but they go through that bedroom where we all slept. I want to show you the basement. This tree was here. Stuck? This tree was here. That is the one thing that's the same. That hickory tree. All right. It had an underground garage. You can see the underground garage, but you can see what they've done. They made an apartment down there. Now here, look, this was really pretty. See, 808 North 4th Street. But this was pretty. The porch was curved. Now, I used to be daring and get out on that ledge above the door. Mother didn't like that. And then you could go out from that bedroom up there to that roof, but there was a trumpeting elephant for a while up on that roof. I could draw you a floor plan at least of how it was. But it was pretty. You can't see the gracefulness of the way that's curved. Yeah, this was it. This was.
Yeah.
And when my folks said that they were selling this house, I broke down and cried my little heart out. Because, see, when we left here, when Mother went to Birmingham to teach, and Dad went off to the ordnance plant on his first job there at Burlington Ordnance Plant, I thought we'd come back.
Oh.
I thought we'd come back home. But when they told me they were selling home, and I could never come home again, it took me. It was very difficult for me to handle. Yeah. That is where Ballard Hall stood, and that's where your grandmother stayed when she went to Parsons College.
Really?
Right there. Yeah.
And now it's under a golden dome.
Under a golden dome. Oh. Well, with me. Okay. Margaret Rowland, wife of Reverend John Armstrong. 1820. Her own words. What? First president of Parsons College.
Born in 1825.
Yeah.
Oxford, Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So who was married here?
Aunt Abby and Uncle Glenn. I was ring bearer. I carried Aunt Abby's ring and a little. And I was very serious about it. Oh, how exciting. Oh. But the windows. See what distressed me when I was here last time. They have a cushion in a golden dome, and they have men's domes and women's domes. They don't live like that. See, I went to that ice house, but that ice house was fascinating because they took this ice from this pond in the winter and cut it and stacked it and packed it in sawdust. And that's what we used to make ice cream with, and that's what I would eat, the ice.
It's a microbial sample of what Mom was doing.
Yeah. And this was a nice little park. We would come here for family reunions. And I remember vividly coming here for a family reunion, and Aunt Frances and Aunt Florence got me behind the car there and scrubbed me off, gave me a spit bath, pulled up my socks, combed my hair, and made me presentable to the cousins. What would the cousins think? What would the relatives think? And all the time they were saying things about Grace. Why Grace doesn't do something with this girl. And I was standing there grinning like a Chessy cat, knowing that my mother just figured eventually time would change me. And Mother wasn't concerned, but I'll never forget that. That's what I think of when I see this car at the reunion. Where do you suppose they got that out of the old creek? I went fishing with Uncle Henry and my father. Uncle Henry took me fishing, and my dad wasn't that interested, but he just didn't, as I see it now, he didn't want me down on the creek with Uncle Henry. This is Uncle Tombstone Henry, okay? But the fish was so long that we brought it home and put it in a wash tub, and the fish couldn't straighten out. It was that long, the big wash tub. And it was a catfish, and it was the finest moment in my fishing career, and it was from this creek
Cedar Creek. Now you could look at Cedar Creek. It was at this spot. We'll see Cedar Creek again.
Oh.
But see,
I don't see any catfish down there.
I suggest you move Mother to Carl
Oh,
or
look, there's a
Gretchen's
bird
seat
jumping in
because
there.
otherwise
Probably
she's
the
just talking to
catfish
John.
jumping.
No.
Well, 220. That was it. 220 or Hackberry.
Okay, we shall, as they say, pop you a.
Hang on, Dad.
Whee!
I think the cemetery is here.
There's a grain bin. Do you remember that grain
No,
bin?
no, wait a minute. We'll see. This is it. Slow down. Stop.
Is that the road back there?
Now look in your rear view mirror to see if
I
there's
see
a
smoke
dust
and
cloud.
dust. Yeah, I see a dust cloud, but I think it's ours.
Go up the road.
Go up the road to this is the cemetery. This is the McCleary Cemetery. I used to tell your father that, hey, my family has its own private cemetery. It's also known as Sand Hill Cemetery. It was on the McCleary farm. This farm originally belonged to Simpkin McCleary, but when he went off to the gold rush and didn't come back, his wife was to inherit it, except they found out that she her previous husband, who had thought it was dead, showed up, and so she was a bigamist, and so they took the farm away from her. I mean, her.
So she had two husbands she wasn't sure about? Or?
No. She
Goldfield
thought
husband.
she had one at a time, but it turned out she had two.
Well, that's right. Is that the one that showed up again? Was that the Goldfield guy or the other guy?
The one that was, her husband was lost in Panama, died in Panama from eating green peaches.
Maybe,
Or else died of cholera. I don't know.
That's the story. If you can believe that, you can believe
She
anything.
showed back up again?
No, her first husband, I don't know how he happened. I don't know the story of it.
I don't know how she could have been a bigamist. One of them obviously died from eating green.
Missing the Hubble cap, John.
The
That
first husband,
big-
she was married, she thought
They had
he
that big
was
shrub
dead,
is poison
and so she
ivy.
married again. Is that
That big shrub is poison ivy.
poison
so.
ivy?
Oh yeah.
Now, it's got wonderful berries. Are the berries edible?
No, they're
When they turn purple?
I've never seen a poison ivy shrub. Here, Dad. Rus radicus maximus. Here we go.
Rus radicus maximus.
yeah, that's poison ivy.
It's Maximilian. Maximilian the First.
Now, are we on the McCleary farm?
What was the McCleary farm? Yes. Yes. The house is a surviving house is right up there,
The one over there.
over yon hill.
Is that or any of the, is that house you remember? You remember? Is that the?
Yes, that was the house where your grandmother was born, and it's a house where my Uncle Nelson lived. It was one of those 100-year family farms, but that's out of the family now. But this was all McCleary Farm. This particular land was the Simpson McCleary land that was gobbled up by his father when Simpson did not return from the gold rush. But it was all McCleary land.
You moved too quickly. I was photographing John, photographing you. I'm Carl photographing you.
Oh,
Oh, we got pheasants.
we have pheasants on
Brought
us.
us on a pheasant hunting trip. I bet there's a nest with eggs in right
Be careful! I guess
There's a lot of, check out for poison ivy.
that isn't poison. Oh, is that poison? No, it isn't.
Its own poison ivy.
This is not poison ivy.
You think there's a nest?
Well, she flew out right there. I just thought maybe there was a nest in there.
Could be.
There's probably is in there someplace.
Sense that it's more intense than the Rus radicus.
Yeah.
Stop again.
See how they where they mow.
No. Well,
I suggest you tell them convert this to a prairie cemetery.
yeah. Now, this is everybody here are either they're McClarys or McClary cousins. They're all interrelated. You'll see
There's a little girl.
different, but it's still.
Sickles.
No.
Here's a McCleary, Stanley R. Died
They
in 95.
They're still using it.
He
Interesting.
is private. I am McCleary. Died in 77 in the war.
Huh.
89, 94.
No, these are all. These are not our branch. But the Huttons they're all cousins. All cousins.
Dad, Mama gave us a plan.
What?
But they're not a different branch. They're not our branch.
Or they must be from Nelson's.
Well, here's a nice gopher hole.
Oh, say, I like this gopher hole.
These are probably all of your Uncle Nelson's kids.
They must be, yes,
How
yes.
many kids did he have?
I like the gopher. I like the gopher hole with the plastic flowers. I think that
Actually, this
That-
gopher has the garden.
Uncle Nelson had 3 kids.
Oh, see, that was 1999.
That's interesting.
It is sand.
Oh, I'm going to go see Helen Porter Simpson, and Helen Porter Simpson will know. Okay, now. Huh.
Benjamin McCleary.
Look here. Huh. Interesting.
Catherine,
Okay.
consort of Benjamin McCleary.
Here. Okay. This is. Wait a minute. My great-great-grandfather, Benjamin McCleary. He was known as Colonel Benjamin because he was known as being an Indian, a fighter in the Indian Wars.
We remember that discussion.
But I hate to mention this in the presence of your father. But anyway, he's known as Colonel Benjamin.
But he's not part of this because he only married into it. So tell us about Benjamin.
Well, I have a lot about Benjamin. Because of a cousin's father's writing, it's very folksy. You'll learn all kinds of things about Benjamin. But he came out here just after this land was opened up, and when he got here, he found his brother was farming a few miles away, and the timber was so thick they didn't know. They both landed in the same place. But what I know about him was that he grew corn and didn't have a market for it, and so he converted it to whiskey, and he sold the whiskey to the Irishmen who were building the railroad. But unfortunately, I also have heard rumor that he imbibed too much of his own product. But he outlived 2 wives. Catherine.
Is consort a wife?
That Catherine.
Just checking.
This is Catherine. Catherine is Catherine Harriman McCleary, and Catherine Harriman was born in Pennsylvania. But I have the records on how they came across from Ohio and then up to Michigan, and then here. And Benjamin's father is buried in Kosciuszko County in Indiana, because Benjamin and his brother came here from Kosciuszko County, Indiana. They came west.
Before that, they were in Pennsylvania. Or just.
He was from, Pennsylvania. I think, both of them. Catherine was known for being a good Presbyterian who stood straight, walked straight, and walked from here into Libertyville to church.
Wow.
And she died relatively young, 52 years old, and then Benjamin married again and had several children, and I think some of these kids, some of those McClearys over there are descendant
Where's
of...
the other wife?
That's what I would think. I don't...
There's another Benjamin McCleary right here. Sarah.
Well, it's maybe I have that written, but that could well be.
Sarah was
But I think that Benjamin was the child of this Benjamin.
This one was 1825.
Now it looks like it's 17 years
This one was born. This one died May 1825.
Aged 17 years?
Yeah.
Either 17 or 72 or 77 or
Could
something.
have been a child.
This guy died in 72, right? 72 72 for his father. Was it 1822 or 72?
I think it's 1872. Look, Catherine died in 1853
52 years
at
old.
52 years old, and then this
Died at 18.
Laura, who wanted to marry the farmhand John Glaze, and her father said, no, you don't marry him. And so she didn't marry him, and of course John Glaze went on to be a very prosperous farmer, and Laura never married. And she spent her middle-aged years making her parents' lives miserable.
Says
Wife
wife
of
of
Terry
Terry
Harper.
Harper.
I know. She married the day after her mother died. But she spent her life focusing on making, I'm quoting my mother, on making her parents' lives miserable because she could not marry John Glaze back when she was young. Terry Harper married her for her money. And rumor has it he poisoned her. Anyway, she died an untimely death soon afterwards. But the furniture, Gretchen, you have that chest of drawers, that walnut chest of drawers. That was her. That walnut table that's in the Laura's house that I used, this was her. The bed that's in the guest room with a good mattress.
Now that you know that, if I'd known the history of some of these, I'm not so sure I'd have married this girl.
I am going to the car to get all that they want to know about. All right, Colonel Benjamin McCleary had an illegitimate grandson.
Aha!
Whose name?
Yeah, the story's coming out.
And his name was Bill Porter. Well, and Bill Porter was interested in family history, and he wrote down the stories as he heard them. And it is the wildest reading you ever hope to. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But he writes about his grandfather, and the grandfather that Will Porter writes about is that Colonel Benjamin. So,
And you have all of that.
yeah, I have it. It's in the file. It will be filed. It's in a file now. Well, that's perfect.
Hi.
It was since the McCleary. Now, Colonel Benjamin. His farm was roughly straight ahead, behind that flagpole. You cannot see the house. There's no buildings left, but it was there.
You mean the land starting at the road and on, or
Yes. The father, Colonel Benjamin farm, was there behind the flagpole out there. His son, John.
Right here. The flagpole's right here.
Yes, but way beyond those trees was the farm of Colonel Benjamin,
Over the hill.
over the hill.
Okay.
He had several sons. One son, his oldest son, was Simpkins, and Simpkin had the farm right here. And he married Idris. They lost 2 children, and so they buried their 2 children on this sand hill. And that was the beginning of the McCleary Cemetery. Then I've told you how he went off to California in the gold rush.
Right.
Didn't come back, and his wife couldn't inherit the land because her first husband showed up.
The one that supposedly ate the green apple and
That's right. That's right. That was Simpkins who supposedly ate the green apples and peaches in Panama, coming home from the gold
What I
rush.
think was that he really liked it out there and decided not to come home again. And
Yeah,
told
that's.
the boys when they got back, tell him he died.
It's either that or cholera. Either that or cholera, but we think maybe he.
See, that was one way you got to California, was to go down the east coast and cross at Panama and go up, rather than walking across the country in those early days.
Okay. So Simpkin had this land, his father, Colonel Benjamin, had that land, and then John Harriman McCleary, the other son, a brother of Simpkin, son of Colonel Benjamin, used his gold rush money and bought that farm.
But he went after the gold rush too.
Yes, and he came back and he used his money to buy this land.
So he
And
actually found some gold.
that's right, and I have a gold nugget.
There you go.
I do. But he cashed in his gold findings and bought that farm. So there were 3 McClearys, father and 2 sons, all owning land together. And the contiguously. Now, John Harriman McCleary's farm, which we will visit next, and where your grandmother Grace was born, was in the family for years because the oldest son, Nelson, stayed there and farmed that land, or at least stayed there for a long, long time. And I visited Uncle Nelson and Aunt Addie. Uncle Nelson did not have the drive that my grandfather did. J. Lewis McCleary inherited all the drive, ambition enough for 2 brothers. And Uncle Nelson was content just to sit on the porch and rock and chew tobacco and spit in an old can and to make canes in a hollow of a tree. In fact, in World War II, when everyone else went on wartime, they didn't change the time because they got up when the chickens went to bed with the chickens and never went anywhere. But it was in the family. That farm was in the family for over 100 years. And it's been sold now and remodeled. Incidentally, on this is important. My grandmother, Elizabeth McIntyre McCleary, had 10 children, but only 3 lived. Nelson, J. Lewis, my grandfather, and Laura, the 3 out of 10. Some of those little stones may well be for those 7 children that she must have buried up here. They lived a while and then they died, and nobody knows. But
Carl had an interesting observation.
which was, I think, solid walnut. There's a lot of cars parked up there. But I remember visiting my Uncle Nelson many times. This house doesn't count. I know nothing about this one. Don't pay any attention. See, when my grandfather, J. Lewis McCleary, married my grandmother, Sarah Ann Hoffman, his father was dead and he was farming this land for his mother. So he brought his bride to this house to live with, so they all lived together.
Who brought who in here? So J. Lewis.
J. Lewis.
His father was dead.
Father was dead and he was farming the land for his mother, Elizabeth McCleary. And so when he married, he brought his wife home to live with his mother on the farm. This was where they all lived.
Nice of him.
Yes.
I bet we could park.
But not in this house.
It was in this house, which is now remodeled,
It's recited.
resided, but this is the old house.
New windows.
Yeah.
We could pull in the driveway.
Yeah, but we can bring the doorbell and talk to them.
The one thing that remains from the days of Uncle Nelson is that tree, that old tree there with that crotch in it, because that's where Uncle Nelson would take a sapling and would bend it and make a cane. He made canes for people on the crotch of that tree.
But why don't we pull in the driveway? I mean, they might enjoy seeing the old
That's the way it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they added to it because there's a 2-foot false ceiling between the top floor and the bottom floor.
Because it's glory, I do not know.
So this was your schoolhouse?
This was your grandmother's first schoolhouse. Because see, They lived with Grandma McIntyre until she was in school. Now around the corner there's a sign on this because of Cousin Dora's, and then you were going to turn right, so you can.
Minus the peanut sprays.
I want to hop out and take pictures.
There's a picture.
Heritage Trail.
Trail. Yeah. Eventually the grandmother turned over the farm to J. Lewis, and so grandmother did not live with her mother-in-law
Forever?
forever. Then they bought the Vaught place. We will get to Vaught place.
I wonder if my camera is taking pictures. Listen to this fine noise it makes when I take.
To the top, Mom. This is what?
This is the old, what Mother called the Dunkard Church, which is really the Church of the Brethren. 1844, it's the oldest Church of the Brethren west of the Mississippi. And the congregation would invite the whole neighborhood in for love feasts.
Brother 70s.
Yeah, and they would cook great tubs of stew under open fires, and everyone would come, and the kids would chase around and play games while the old farmers would talk farming, and their wives would talk things about farmers' wives would discuss. And then the members of the congregation would wash one another's feet ceremoniously.
Wow.
During this love feast is part of, I don't know, that it was a vivid memory of your grandmother and the good times that they had gathering right here by this very same church and this very area where you're standing. That would have been about 100 years ago. I'm disappointed the church is locked, but it's obviously that it's maintained. We've been in it when it was just wide open. And I have brochures that I picked up inside. That's it. Backs out and farmed right through it. But you asked what was ballast pit. There was a ballast pit beside it.
Yeah.
Jim, can you explain ballast pit? It was it's where they dug the soil out to build up the track, I think. And it was, you know what, David's farm? That kind of that trench along the track. Well, there was one along there, and it was wonderful because it had willow trees and had frogs and all kinds of things in it. Now,
Flat country, you know, it's hard to put a train track. You had to get it up above
Yeah.
soggy soil. And
it was out here that I was carrying water to the thrashers. The thrashing machine, the railroad track came through.
Okay, let's start from the top. What are we looking at?
There is Fairfield. This is my grandfather, J. Lewis McCleary's farm, where I spent my childhood working. Now where I got my sunspots, okay?
You show your sunspots.
My
Yes,
sunspots
there we
here.
go. Yeah.
But the time Grandpa farmed this land, and you can see it's really good land, flat. The railroad track came through here. It was the Rock Island line. The railroad. And
Your famous hog and human story?
no, the hog and human was up there. The pea vine was further up right up there. But the Uncle Norval bought this land from my grandfather, and he took all the track up and totally obliterated it, did it away with it. But here on the other side of the road, off to the left, you can see where the track ran. Yeah. And it was in this field that your mother, that's me, was riding a horse carrying water jug to to the men who were working in the field at the time that they were thrashing, and there was a runaway team of horses, and how the men all told me to get out, to move, because and the fear of those men with that runaway team, with that wagon. The wagon was where they put the bales of oats on prior to thrashing. With that runaway team, the terror of the horses, the terror of my terror, everyone's terror of a runaway team. There's just you see it in movies, but to have anyway, that's where I experienced it. Then later, Uncle Norval bought that farm, but you can barely see. He lived there. Actually, he bought it first, and the pea vine of the old Hog and Human was a little train track. It ran parallel to this main line, and it was up there between here and that house. That's where my cousin Marilyn walked down the track one day and lost her shoe, and it was a day the train didn't run. Yeah. But if you've studied the topography of southeast Iowa as much as Carl and Gretchen have traveled this, you can see how this land was very good land for southeast Iowa. Well, that's it. But of the
His farm went to those trees, and that farm stood there beyond.
it went about halfway there. But see, when Norval bought it, Norval bought the whole shebang and just made it one big field.
So J. Lewis had a quarter section, or
Oh, I think he had more than that.
but not in this particular piece.
Because he had this land, and then he had land on the other side of the road. The land south of the road, the highway there, was pasture, and this was what he tilled. And at one time he owned additional land down by the timber down by Cedar Creek. He owned a lot of land, but and he had Percheron horses, which he imported from Europe. But during the Depression, he had to retrench, and then later on, he nearly had the farm taken away from him. That's another story. But J. Lewis was president of the school board. He was the upstanding citizen of this whole community, and so when he owed money to the bank in the Depression and couldn't pay it, they said, we will foreclose, we will make J. Lewis McCleary the example, and so all the other farmers will have to pay up. And so they took everything away from him except left his land. And then, having his land, he built back up until the time he retired and then moved to town, and he did very well financially. And one of my vivid memories is that whole shoebox full of those obituary notices or memory, the souvenirs from funerals, and where he was a pallbearer for dozens of his old friends, but they gave up and went to town and they died, and he stayed and farmed this land and came back again to prosperity, and he lived to be 88. So, long story. This is it.
So this is the house
No. I've got pictures
on this
of the
site.
house. On this site is a house where Grace McCleary became the bride of Sigurd Jorgenson.
The only thing left?
The only thing left is this tree. Norval and Dorothy built this new house. But Norval and Dorothy owned the land. They tore down the old house and built this new.
Aha.
Okay.
Mother,
standing, sober, under. Here you can't see, but there's a draw. Oh, there's all kinds of great stories I could tell you here.
Okay.
There's a draw there, and I remember when they put that in, the CCC boys put it in, and they played ball out there, and grandmother's chickens disappeared. Okay, but when you up out of the draw on the right, there was a farm of Rolly Moore, and straight ahead where this clump of trees is, there was a great cottonwood tree and a well. And on these hot nights, we would sit out there by the well, and the leaves of the cottonwood tree would rustle. We'd know this was a breeze. And we'd sit there and we'd watch the cars go by. And of course they knew every car that passed, and they'd wonder why so-and-so had gone to town. Or if they had gone to town, they knew why they'd gone to town. This was a topic of conversation when we sat out there, right out there by that tree, by the well. Well then, this one night, down came Rolly Moore's wife. And he had been beating her. And she was seeking shelter. And so Grandma took her inside, and then Rolly Moore came down from there and said, "Have you seen my wife?" It's the only time I ever heard my grandfather lie. My grandfather was scrupulously honest. But he said, no, he had not seen Rolly Moore's wife. And so she was, I don't know how she got back or the story or what happened beyond that. But the tree and that pump, there's an infamous story about your mother being out there by this well because the well there was the center of activity for the farm. And they would take the seed corn, they'd save the fine seed corn, and then they'd shell it off and put it in the planter. And they had been working out for the pump, and had filled a whole tub of seed corn laboriously taken off the ear and over the old corn sheller and grated. And I came along with the pump, and I took that. What do you do? What does a child do with a pump handle and water?
You pump it.
And a tub? What do?
You fill it.
I filled it. So I pumped the water into the seed corn. And what does seed corn do when water hits it? Does it go through the planter? No. And Uncle Henry made the famous remark to his sister, my mother, said, well, at least she was your niece and not Lizzie's that did it. All right, I never heard the last of that story. It was a great place. There was a great water tank for the cattle out there. And it was concrete, it was big, and whenever I caught little fish, I'd put them in there, and then the fish would feed on the drippings from the cattle.
Where'd you catch fish? Down the creek there?
No, Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek. I caught the big one there. I'd catch little ones, and then eventually, when Grandpa would clean out the tank, why they had good fish, grain-fed catfish. But this was the pasture where he kept the cows. And there was another pump there. And this is talk about our windmills. I have memories of my grandfather. When the wind didn't blow, he would have to pump that water by hand, and pump and pump and pump water for the cattle from the well out there with that windmill, and also this one. And he wore long underwear all summer long too, lightweight underwear, but he felt was insulating and cool. Sometimes I'd pump for my grandfather. Oh, but here, right across, now let's talk about this barn, this tremendous barn that was right there, made with oak beams, hand-hewn oak beams, with beams, and it was two-story with a loafing area down below. And, right there, about for that EME, whatever it is, there was the Indiana Tavern. This was the Old Dragoon Trail. In Libertyville, you'll see a marker to the Old Dragoon Trail. Well, it went by here, and the tavern, which was, they called it a tavern, but it was more than that. There were rooms for people traveling through. And you remember that tar bucket that I have off of a covered wagon? It came from the old Indiana Tavern that was right there.
Wait, so what, there's a tavern there and then the barn?
No, there were two buildings.
Oh.
The great barn was to the left, and the old Indiana Tavern was to the right, and it was in kind of the cow lot. And Grandpa used it for grain storage and other things until the thing, some boards fell out and impaled some of his animals, and so he took it down. But the Indiana Tavern was very near the barn. Barn, Indiana Tavern. But every bit of that Indiana Tavern was walnut. We're talking the floor, the lath in the walls. Everything was black walnut. They just burned it. And I've wondered about if the County Historical Society is aware of where the Indiana Tavern was located, or if they even know about it. But that's where the tar bucket came from, as I've said before. And we'll see the monument to the Dragoon Trail when you get to Libertyville. And I guess that's about it.
Great.
That's it. That's it.
So this is.
The importance of this cemetery, the Fell Cemetery, is that 4 generations of your ancestors are buried right here.
Show me.
Yes, well, I will show you. Coax me, coax me. I am ready for this. I have my own 2 personal cameras. Oh, dear. Well, do you want to start the very oldest, or?
Yeah.
Ah, Carl, you are in luck. You are on your way to see the grave of the man who married the daughter of George Donner.
Wow.
How about that? You needed to be here, to come here. We're started as I say.
Father said he'll find some of these ones.
He could well have. Yeah, I could have. See, this is where I came as a child on Memorial Day. We all came here on Memorial Day. That's what it meant, was coming to this cemetery and putting flowers on the graves of the family, and then they would give us kids each a bouquet, and we would find the graves of a veteran because he had a flag on his grave, and then they'd play taps right around that pole, and then we'd all put our flowers on the grave of the veteran. Because see, many of these veterans, they had no family left or nobody to put flowers, so they were. Hey, he didn't do what I wanted. No. Original.
This is Absalom Harmon.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Absalom. I know all about you.
Yes. Yes, and this is the mother of Absalom Harmon. Now, Absalom Harmon's wife, Elizabeth Donner Harmon, is buried in Sangamon County, Illinois, near Springfield. He came on, I don't know, gee, but how do I do this? Let's talk about this. Could I have him redo it again? It's confusing.
The way it is.
What?
It's not
Springfield, Illinois. Let's try it this way. Grace McCleary's mother was Sarah Ann Hoffman. Okay, I should have gone this way. Sarah Ann Hoffman is buried there. Her parents are buried there. Her parents are buried here. And her mother is buried, his mother's buried here, so there's 4 generations of your family buried in this one cemetery. Should we make it simpler by starting with the newest one and then
That would be fine.
rather than working back from the oldest?
That would be fine.
Which would be fine.
Newest.
Let's go there. Come on. This is,
coming back here.
yes, we're coming back. We're going to go to the Familner farm,
Yes.
which was the first farm that J. Lewis and Sarah McCleary owned, and they bought it from the Familner, so it was called always known as the Famulner farm, and this is the Famulner.
Huh.
Okay. Gretchen, you're gonna get your hut.
You get your hike.
You'll get your jog. How fun. Hey,
This is nice. All the veterans are mapped out.
oh,
And the first edition, third edition, the original cemetery with the
Here.
Potter's Field.
here, read this. I would Liberty Bell Cemetery, unique in Iowa. Huh.
Burial back to 1841. Graves are still dug by hand.
Huh.
There's the Vaught. The Vaught.
Yeah. Well, it is, I think, a very nice cemetery for a rural cemetery, and it is large. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's my house. Joe was a brother of my grandmother. Joe Hoffman was a brother of my grandmother. Now,
They must have had a son named Lester.
they had a son named Lester who died young. Okay. Fordyce, they were the neighbors. Gary, they were cousins.
Poison ivy.
Laos. Really? Yes. Okay, here we are. Gearing, their cousins. Hazel was a second cousin.
There we go. Norval McCleary.
Yeah.
Well, that's not where we're going.
Marilyn. Wait a minute, there's Norval and Dorothy. Laos, that's
Norval is the, we were
Marilyn and Richard. Ah. Oh, my grandparents are right here. Here they are.
Marilyn, Richard McCleary.
No. Marilyn McCleary married Richard Louth. And he was an alcoholic and they're divorced.
They got plot, but
That's all right. They're going to be buried together. And they lost a son, Michael, in a motorcycle accident. He was riding a motorcycle without a helmet. Okay, here's Jay Lewis and Sarah. They were married 60-some years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, whose watch do I have?
His father's.
And he's buried.
We saw the stone, John Harriman McCleary. We
Got
were
it.
out there in the McCleary Cemetery.
Got it. And Florence Walker.
And Florence is buried here. That's nice, the way that's done. That's done very nicely.
I remember Florence.
With her DAR. Yeah. And then Francis is going to be buried here too. Yeah. So. Yep. So, Okay, here's Norval and Dorothy. And then Norval and Dorothy's daughter, Marilyn, will be buried there. And so this is, okay, we're starting with my grandparents. My Aunt Florence, my Uncle Norval, my first cousin Marilyn, who's very much alive yet. But, okay.
All right.
But Marilyn and Richard, her former husband, are good friends. And when Richard Louth was very ill, it was Marilyn who took care of him. It was just the alcoholism on his part. There never was any, and he's around here. He's around here. He frequents the local tavern, and he moons over his Marilyn. And Marilyn went into the tavern and introduced herself when she came through. And they said, no, Dick's not here, but we sure know all about you. He's still carrying the torch for you. So good to meet you, you know. Well, anyway. Well, now we're going.
So how's come your mother and father didn't decide to be buried here, rather in D.C.?
Because Harold was killed suddenly. And a decision had to be, and Harold was buried in D.C. And Mother and Dad said, we're going to be buried next to Harold. And so they bought the family plot right then and there to bury Harold. And yeah. Now, what was the name of Grandmother McCleary? Maiden name?
Hoffman.
Hoffman. And here we have.
That's why did they finally want to grant?
Yes, here we have my great-great-grandparents.
And
Henry
Margaret
Harmon.
Harmon
Margaret Harmon.
was the descendant of George Donner.
That's right.
Margaret was?
Yes. Yes, because her mother was Elizabeth Donner. She was born in Sangamon County, Illinois. Her mother died in Springfield. It's her father that we're going to visit up there. Her father was Absalom Harmon. 1860. Died in 1860. And if she was right at 96 years old, see, she was born in 17 something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're talking about longevity
Take care of the body.
in this family? No. But think of the people in my family have lived a long time. When you think of what the average lifespan was, when this gal lived to be nearly 100 when she was born in 17 something. Yeah.
I mean, I've got to put up with my brother and sisters for another.
Yes, take care of yourself.
Just the women.
That's my grandmother, Sarah Ann Hoffman, liked a young man named Maley Williams. And Maley was a nice guy. They were good friends. And whether or not they would have married, no one will ever know. Except when they're getting serious, Grandpa said, no, he could be a friend, but Sarah, you don't see any more of this young man. He cannot come courting.
This is Maley Williams.
Maley Williams.
This is
No.
Sarah Hoffman.
Sarah Hoffman. No, Maley Williams. And then along came this dashing, driven J. Lewis McCleary, who was full of all great potential, and Grandpa Hoffman says, yes, Sarah, you marry him. Okay. So she did. And J. Lewis McCleary was, as I said, the president of the school board. He was the pillar of the community. The only lie he ever told was telling Rolly Moore his wife was not in the house when Rolly was beating on her in drunken rage. Okay. Well, came this Great Depression in the 30s when things collapsed on J. Lewis and he lost his Percher and horses and all his fine cattle. He turned for a loan to save the farm. Who did they turn to? Maley Williams. Bailey Williams turned out to be the Libertyville town banker. And he was the one who loaned Sarah and Jay Lewis the money to save the family farm. Well, Mother was aware of when we'd come out here Memorial Day and put flowers on the grave that her mother would slip away. And she would slip over to the grave of Bailey Williams and put flowers on his grave. And I don't know where the grave of Bailey Williams is, but it's somewhere out here. Oh, isn't that a good story? Bailey Williams did not have any, and his wife did not have any children. And it was in Bailey Williams' barn that Mother put her pony when she rode her little pony or took the pony cart to Libertyville to school.
Oh, that's
I'm taking you up to the where they moved, where they live. They went from the old McCleary place to this place, which is right up the road. Let's go up there to the Vaught place.
that's what the school was there.
The school was here.
Nice trees there. So in that place where that house is, was the old
That's where the old farmhouse was, and there's a great shot of the kids in a pony cart in front of the old farmhouse, and I have it, but I didn't. I thought I brought it, I didn't, but you will see it. But the neat thing about this farm was that my mother hunted Indian arrowheads. She found boxes full of Indian arrowheads right on this land. Yeah.
So where did the land went all out here into the woods?
Yes. And the Cedar Creek's down behind it. And you see, it's called
Cedar Creek's down there, beyond the barn?
Yes, Cedar Creek is beyond the barn, right down
Yeah,
there.
the railroad tracks.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what I think is so neat about the railroad tracks and them saving this for walkway, is because it cuts right through the old familiar place.
Which is where these houses are.
Yeah.
Over here.
This was all,
So the farm was there on the other side of the road.
the house was here,
But all the
but
land.
the land was here.
And the only thing really left is that tile.
The only thing left is that tile silo that my J. Lewis McCleary built. I took Mother here. I took Mother and Virgil. That was before these houses were built.
Okay, so this is the second.
You really need it? Okay.
Yep.
Side entrance.
All right.
Yes, there is a side entrance.
So tell us the story, Mother. This was
When my father went from being let go by Parsons when they couldn't make payroll to going to being dean of the junior college in Fort Dodge, we came back here. We rented out our home, and with the income from our rent, we lived upstairs in this house. And the rent money paid for the rent here, paid for our food, our clothing, our everything. And it was in this apartment where my father nearly died of pneumonia. He was so weak, he could hardly beat a metal dishpan with a spoon to call for help. and he was delirious, and he thought he was back in the front lines, the front trenches in World War I throwing hand grenades.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what this building is?
This is a Jefferson County courthouse. Your grandfather, Sigurd Jorgenson, was the first Democrat ever elected to public office in Jefferson County. And being the daughter of the county auditor, I got to go up in the clock tower when they wound the clock once a week, and it was all wound by hand. A man cranked the weights up. Yeah. And what else is significant? Oh, I've told you this before, but your grandfather, my grandfather, J. Lewis McCleary, was a die-hard Republican, but he changed his voter registration to Democrat so he could vote for his son-in-law.
So we could get him employed.
Yeah. And, yeah. But he also liked his son-in-law. And my dad was county auditor for 2 terms.
Well, look at
And-
them on.
What?
Is it plastic?
Why not?
A
That's real.
sarcopia.
No, it's not.
Gee. This is my mother's version of why Sigurd was not reelected. Because he did not hire more staff. He wanted to keep the costs done low by running the office on a minimum of staff. And the townspeople and the farmers, when they came in, they wanted out, they didn't want to wait. And they had to wait because they were short-staffed. And so Dad is austerity. Oh, I can tell you what's missing. I can tell you what's missing. Right now, they had spittoons. Spittoons. The spittoons are missing.
We're running a bypass around.
Yeah, they're doing a bypass around town.
Hello. My father was
We're on a
county
historical
auditor.
tour.
Historical tour. My father was county auditor in the 30s. Okay. My dad
And
wore
my mother
suit.
had free run of the place.
You might be interested in that picture over there. That's a picture of the auditor's office. I'm not sure what's good. 1902, okay.
I
Nah,
haven't changed much.
I'm in 34, 38.
I'm willing to bet I hadn't changed much.
No, that's before. Okay, but here's what I want.
Okay.
Your grandfather always wore a suit, a 3-piece suit, and including vest. And his vest and his jacket were worn right across here, threadbare. He only had one suit, and threadbare where
From this very counter.
from this very counter. But he stood up there, and that was where his. He was 5'10", but that's where his suit was. Yes. Fun. Yeah, long time ago.
Cool.
It was good. Thank you. Yes, yes.
This
And
very desk and this very.
that very
And
desk.
this is before the city was even. This is.
And that's he was here before that met. And my grandfather, your great grandfather, was on the board of supervisors. And the board of supervisors. Anyway, the other door is board of supervisors.
Here, super. That's it.
Okay.
Here we go. There's the supervisor's office.
Your grandfather, my grandfather McCleary. Oh, they divided it up. See, that's what threw me up because it was one long building, one long room. And see, this is as I remember it when it had the tower on top. 48, the steeple went. Okay, and then I had run of the shaft off. I could go in here. Yeah. He's here now. This is the sheriff.
Automobile department.
Now. Okay. And they didn't have an elevator. Treasurer's office. I haven't been in there.
I wonder if they electrified the clock.
Let's back up.
I told you about J. Lewis McCleary telling a lie back
Right.
there, Rolly Moore's wife.
your grandfather Jorgenson did a dishonest thing too. He was in charge of counting all the ballots as they came in, and they were paper ballots, and they were all in fabric bags, good linen bags, and he was to burn all the ballots and the cotton bags in the furnace. But
How are you?
we needed the cotton. We made dresses, underwear, tea towels, pillowcases out of those cotton bags that the ballots were in, that by law would have been burned. Can you imagine it?
We didn't lie. Nobody asks. And but don't ask myself.
I still have some of those bags, or one or two. I know what they are. The church provided work for Dad. That was the church Dad $12. Getting money for poor people.
It used to be more wood panel, but they painted the dark wood on the back. But they still kept the old family, the altar. Okay, now we are, and this was a Sunday school room. So I learned to sing all those Pentecostal hymns because we had a Pentecostal choir there. But this, and then you could open this up for Christmas or special events, and then it was open. But this is what I want you to see. Here, we have one of these.
Lights.
Lights. Where are we? 73. Oh no. Where are we? 60. No. 47. We're getting there. 40. Wait a minute. 41. 40. No. It was 42. I think. Where are we? 44. It was Palm Sunday.
Kristina Jorgenson.
There I am. This is my confirmation picture. Yeah, and there's Mary Ellen Eklund, and she was B. Stromberg's cousin. So that's the Eklund collection.
Point to you in the picture, Mom.
Oh, I'm the one with the two hair ribbons with the pigtails right there. Okay.
Pretty sporty.
Pretty sporty. Yeah. All girls. Yeah. And I was baptized in this church with the name of Christine. And this was Kristine. But my father called me Kristina and wrote letters to me as Kristina. So eventually, when I went away to college, I said, I'm going to sort this out and I'm going to settle it. And I chose to have the A, because that was the family name way back in Norway.
What does your birth certificate say?
CH, Christine. But I had it changed. Dr. McGuire, my neighbor, who delivered me, when he was still living, and my mother was living, I had it changed on my birth certificate.
So how do you go about doing that?
Well, you get the
Right people to...
with the doctor who delivered me, and with my mother's they just signed papers.
So if you go to the doctors or to the hospital, it's still Christine.
She's so
It would be
cute.
with the CH, which was the way my got tired of carrying the caskets up and down steps.
So they put in an elevator?
Wait till you can see this elevator. Push a button and see what happens. You've never seen an elevator like this one in the church.
And it's big enough for caskets?
You got it.
Like a hospital elevator. Gurney.
See? And
You're right.
This is the outside entrance, and
Sure.
this the inside. John, can you see the inside of this?
No.
It's really a cold room. But these were the benches out of the old nursery.
Yeah, upstairs.
Upstairs, yeah, the cradle roll.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was the furnace room?
This was where the old furnace and the coal.
Okay.
Now, you were around in 46, were you? What was your name?
Berg.
You belong-
Deers. You remember a Deers?
Nope. Sorry. I wish I did.
Well, my mother was Edith Deers.
No.
She married Clarence Berg.
Clarence Berg sounds familiar, but not.
Okay.
And the Parkers, did Bob?
Oh, Bob and
Maxine.
Maxine and Lorne.
Lauren and
Yeah,
Ada.
Lorne.
And Ada.
Lorne and Maxine just passed away.
No. I went to their wedding.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. That was a while ago. Did they ever have children?
Yeah. Mike and Kevin.
Kevin, I wonder where Ada is.
Oh, Ada? Oh, I don't tell you.
See, Park, the father of these people I'm discussing was our minister.
Mm-hmm.
And he died suddenly, and then the mother came back with the kids and raised
So-
the kids here.
Now, Mom, did you sit in these benches here, these cradle roll
Yeah,
benches?
the cradle
Oh,
roll
we should have a
bench.
picture of you and your bench. Here.
That?
I did. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
was there sand up there?
Well, we little ones got to play in the white
White
sand.
sand. I remember that vividly.
Mm-hmm. And,
Yes.
Nelson
Yes.
was a, oh gosh, Mrs. Grant Nelson.
Yes. Yes. Mrs. Grant Nelson. Yes.
Was in charge of the
Cradle roll.
Mhm.
Yes.
And her daughter, Mary Louise, was a nurse.
Okay, but I remember Mrs. Grant Nelson. Yes. Well, see, Reverend Piper was a pastor who confirmed me,
Okay.
and I was with Peggy.
He confirmed me and married me.
Well,
Wow.
and you knew Peggy Piper and another. Yeah, Peggy was a year older.
Peggy and Carol Jean.
Yes. Well, this is neat. Come, kids, onward. This is the grand.
Have you been upstairs then?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw her picture.
And it's still a lovely church. Oh, and I showed them my confirmation.
Sure.
1942, spring. Because I got out of school.
Okay, tell the story, Mom. You're here at Fairfield.
I am here at Fairfield.
And exactly where were you standing?
I don't remember. I just remember that well, first of all, there were 2 episodes with the Streamline train. One is when we got to come down and see the Zephyr come through the first time. And the whole school got out. We're all down here to see it come through, and it sounded its horn for us, and it was wonderful. And it was like this silver bullet. And then second time, Rexall stores had as a promotion their products, all the Rexall drugstore products inside the Streamline train. And so all of us got to go through a Streamline train looking at baby aspirin and thermometers and all these accoutrements of a drugstore. And that's how we got to go through it. But otherwise, I just simply came through here, and this was not a stop for the Zephyr. No, it wasn't. The Fairfield was not a stop. You had to go to Ottumwa. Ottumwa, in fact, when Harold got out of the army from Berlin back when John was a baby, and we all met here for Christmas, we had to go to Ottumwa to meet Harold because this was never a passenger stop. All right.
Well, hang on.
But as a little Girl Scout walking home from Girl Scouts in the early evening, I would walk this way home because I'd come by the trains, and sometimes there was a freight train or a passenger train here, a steam one.
Train's coming.
Trains.
Mom, it might be the Zephyr.
A Zephyr. And those steam engines, you cannot imagine how live those big steam engines were with that coal box glowing like a great eye of some evil idol, and the steam hissing, and then they'd go pop, 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 and it'd scare me deliciously.
Hey!
What do we have now? The Zephyr. I'll bet it's a freight.
Yep.
Right here, directly across there was a garage, and then it was a stagecoach, an old stagecoach. And we kids would play in that old stagecoach. And I have wondered what happened to the stagecoach. Don't know. This, being the Jorgenson ancestral home, was a screen porch upstairs.
The one that's now been stuccoed in?
Yeah, sleeping porch upstairs and screen porch downstairs. This garbage of a garage was not here, and my sandbox was here. This was the playground sandbox. Nobody lived in the attic. This house was stucco over hollow tile.
Pardon?
This house was stuccoed over hollow tile, and it was not great for this climate, and I'm surprised that stucco's held up as well as it has. Obviously, they patched it and painted it. Now, when Dad lost his job as county auditor, and we moved back here, all 5 of us slept in one large bedroom, which was that window there to the right of the chimney. We slept all 5 in one large bedroom in the winter.
This is the second time you were back here.
That's right.
But then he lost his job.
No, yeah. Well, we came back here when Dad was county auditor, and then when he was not reelected as county auditor, then we camped out here. That was really the worst. We're talking 38 and 39. And then we all 5 slept in one bedroom right there in the winter, and then in summer we spread out of the sleeping porch in the bedroom. And
So this is upstairs.
Upstairs, and we rented out 2 bedrooms.
The downstairs.
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
This is a 3-bedroom house. We all slept in one bedroom. 5 of us in the one big bedroom. And we could rent out the other 2 bedrooms and get some money, a little cash for food.
And then everybody lived downstairs.
Yeah, sure. We just had roomers. We rented to students in 2 bedrooms upstairs. It was a nice house. It really was a nice house. This was a basement entry to a garage. Of course, we didn't have a car, but subsequently converted to apartment or whatever. And you'll see pictures of Harold and I sitting up there on that porch at that curve. And one time I came by and there was a trumpeting elephant up there on that thing. But this steps were not here. The steps were for the main entrance in front. Yeah, this was my home, and I cried bitterly when Mother said it was going to be sold because I realized I could never come home again.
They sold it to his man. So just a second, I need to get a picture of you.
And my
everybody else.
And it played here, and I played with it. And
You were their pet.
I was a pet, but they didn't give me any handicap.
That's recording.
I thought of something else I'd like to share with you. Remember, on last night's tour, I took you up to Dr. Graber's house at the end of the street beyond Antini's. Well, there were 3 doctors who lived in this block. Dr. Graber, my doctor, Dr. McGuire, and this was Dr. Castell. And the dentist was across the street. They were nice houses. They were professional people who made money. And the houses here were quality for the time. And since then, it's just been filled in on the vacant lots with others. The flat area to the left of the brook, we could go out there. Just awful. This was the dining room closest to us. It was a lovely floor plan. Big dining room, nice living room, a kitchen with a nook, and then the stairway that had a niche cut open for a telephone, which we didn't have. We did not have a telephone. The gas stove had been disconnected and taken away. We lived there with kerosene stove and no telephone. and no refrigerator. We had an ice box in the basement with ice for the water was. But it's interesting that Mrs. Ball's, look here, I bet that's been divided too for them, because they wouldn't have the.
I'll give you a blank tape. About 2 hours. Which will be fun.
Because it goes slow and it does the.
And this battery lasts longer than it does.
Well, Dad's not going to be as.
Well, it'd be nice to get Dad to take you to where the old farm is.
Well, he needs to because I haven't been there since I was really little, so he'll want to.
Where his old school was, and get shots of him. Have him get out of the car and actually stand there and talk to you. When you do that, get close to him because the wind makes it tough to hear the sound.
Oh, okay.
Another thing you can learn more things at once. See that switch right there? Zoom.
Oh, I was wondering where that was. Okay.
Dad didn't have money to pay the doctor bill, so Dad worked digging ditches and changing Dr. McGuire's barn to pay for Alf.
And Alf has been trouble ever since.
Whether it's a pH or no.
Yeah. See,
Yeah,
when things are really about it, they're work. And before,
How did it ended up in the DAR books?
because people had given the DAR a copy of the Prill books.
What are the Prill books?
The Prill books are a listing of all the people buried in the cemeteries in Jefferson. And right up in here, I think you'll find Buckeye. And
You can cross Buckeye,
Hey,
right?
we're off the gravel road.
wait a minute, did you cross Buckeye?
No, I don't think so.
Buckeye. It goes to the left and it says dead end.
All right.
This is the boonies. And then to try and find it, it's so easy with a map like this, but
Did you
without
need
it,
to go down Buckeye, Mom?
oh, I had a terrible time.
Mom,
What?
did you need to go down Buckeye?
Yes, we're going to turn left on Buckeye. I think
would
this
guess
is
this
it.
would be it.
I think this is Buckeye.
It's
Yes.
Buckeye.
Uh-huh.
Is it dirt or gravel?
Oh, it's probably dirt.
Dead
Hey,
end.
it's
Gravel.
gravel.
That's right.
Pretty sporty.
Oh, this is Dead End Road.
The only reason they kept this road open this far is it ends at the cemetery. Then the county didn't maintain it any further because there wasn't anything down there. Tell me about Turkey Scratch.
Well, my dad used to mine here.
Mine?
Mine coal.
Yeah, my
On-
stepfather told me about this, but go ahead. Yes?
Okay, it was over here at Cudworth's. I believe it was Ace, the other Cudworth's place.
But
Mine coal.
why is this land so poor that they could close off the road? What's back in there?
Nothing. That's why they
Which is
closed
why
it
they
off.
did it.
They had
Pretty
an
close
old
to the river.
one. It was Helen. She used to live back there. tell them about why they closed this road off, I suppose.
I don't know why they closed off, but we used to live around there. I don't know why they did it.
What's back there? Was it the land poor?
They was a little road.
Great.
There's no name. It's just great.
That's all it says on the tombstone. Is there a name?
Daniel Allenson McCleary and McIntyre and his wife Chloe
Chloe.
Mobley
This
McIntyre.
is what they had in the library on him.
And
Clary.
hey, well,
4 generations.
and and next to them is her sister Mariah McIntyre, and those gals were great quilters, and I gave one of Mariah McIntyre's quilt to the Iowa State Historical Museum in Des Moines, and they were delighted to receive it because I could document it completely, and they're glad to get quilts from before the turn of the century that were documented, made by Iowans, and I could give her
your names?
the whole thing.
All
Oh,
Ulrichs.
we're from. This is my grandfather's grandparents. So if you figure the grades. Daniel Allenson McIntyre and his wife Chloe Mobley McIntyre. Their daughter Elizabeth was my mother's grandmother and my great-great-grandmother. So this goes way back. They lost 3 children at least as infants. And here, Diadania, I know, and Eliza were two of their children. See, it says child of T.A. and C. McIntyre.
So their daughter, Elizabeth, who was Grandma's grandma, was Grace's grandma?
That's right. Their daughter, Elizabeth, was Grace's grandma. Ah.
You know that isn't that many generations, though, because they were born in 1800.
First, I'm just taking one of just the top of yours, because I like it. Which one is that? Wait a minute. And now I'm going to take you one with the stone. Carol, you can get closer to your brother. Too. Oh, I like that. Oh, this is great. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Terrific. Yeah, the greenskeeper's throwing us out.
I'd like to get out of this rain.
What'd you say about closing time?
4 o'clock. Cemetery closes at 4. Everybody out.
I tell you, to me, this is the most rural of the rural cemeteries.
The most nicely kept one, too.
Huh?
It's out there.
This is out there.
This one probably was not burned. Probably timber. This is timber soil here, I imagine, not prairie soil.
I think, Carol, you ought to shoot upward and document it as Rominger.
Rominger Cemetery,
Also known as County Line.
with its greenskeeper.
And the end.
Supposed to be a wire here to wire.
And it's the end of the line. That's the end of the road.
Beyond is Turkey Scratch.
That's right.
Now wait, here. Now, just stand there. I've got to get this.
This one's been taken.
I'm doing another one for you, John.
That one's mine.
Oh, for you, Gretchen. Is any car coming?
No. Hang on, I'm going to do this. Perfect.